everybody.
Hello, hello.
This is the Street Epistemology call-in show. I've got 3 guests with me today. Shall we go clockwise or counterclockwise? What say you, Sushi?
I say clockwise. I've over clockwise.
Clockwise. Rosemary, tell us about who you are and why you are here and things about you. Clockwise or counterclockwise? What say you, Sushi?
Hi, I'm Rosemary. I've joined in a few times. I'm a novice at SE, and I'm really here because I enjoy having deeper conversations, and it's something that once I got out of school into the real world doesn't always happen as easily, and this is a great community to do that.
I'm Gomeo. I've been here a few times as well. I don't really also same thing as Rosemary. I'm shy and awkward, but I like having conversations with people, and I think SE is a general good cause to spread to the rest of the world. So that's my goal here.
Yeah, I'm Sushi. I'm a practice event host for over on the SE Discord. I found SE through Anthony Metabosco's videos, and I thought it was a very interesting conversation technique. Picked it up and use it in a lot of my conversations now. I think it's fascinating to just ask questions and really get to explore somebody else's belief and see the world from a different perspective.
Excellent. Now, what you say, there's a practice?
That's right. There is a practice. Yeah, there is. Yeah, every Saturday. Yeah.
You define the terms for me. What do you mean by a Discord?
Oh, okay. Good question. So a Discord is a platform for voice chat, text chat, and even video chat. It originally was started for gaming purposes for people to talk with each other. But now there's communities, and one of the communities is Street Epistemology, where Street Epistemology is practiced regularly, both in text and in voice.
Excellent, excellent. And now the other thing you said was practice. What is specific about this practice that you're doing on the Street Epistemology Discord? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So what's special about it is it's a low pressure environment where people that are brand new to Street Epistemology can come in, either present claims, just listen in, or question for the first time. And I always try to get, new people that come into the room to get a question. And we have a little, pamphlet thing that we put up that, you just go through and ask the questions, and, you can perform pretty good SE. And it's really fascinating to see some people are just catch on like that and do some really great SE. So it's exciting.
This is, for example, a high pressure environment because we are going to put you with your face unedited, unscripted, and ask you to perform in front of tens, maybe dozens of people. So this is a high pressure environment. In what way is your practice that you're describing lower pressure?
So generally the practices are less than 15 people, which sometimes it can get larger than that. But what makes it nice is with having hosts or other people in the room that are experienced, if you get stuck at all, you can say, hey, I'm stuck, and you can, get people to suggest questions for you or give directive of where to go. Or if you want to back out of the conversation, you just say, I'm done. And then, the conversation ends. So it's not like in public where you're, up straight with somebody and in the street and going you can't back out of the conversation. You're on video or whatever. And yeah, it's very tough. Yeah,
indeed. Yeah, I think the lack of recording allows a whole degree of freedom to the process that we're not doing because we're recording you, and the internet never forgets. If you say something embarrassing on this show, I tell you. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the only the problem with the Discord is I shouldn't say it's much of a problem, is because it is an informal practice. It's warm up, right? It's easy mode for SE because a lot of people that are coming in are familiar with SE, so you're not going to get a lot of the Gish Gallop, which you'll traditionally get with somebody who's never really had a claim truly explored before, where they'll go on tangents about unrelated matters. Mm-hmm. So with the practice, it's generally much easier than if you were on the street. as if like when I go into other Discords and, you know, you can get people that ramble on for 10 minutes about stuff, then they even forgot what their claim was.
Yeah. Gish Gallop. There might be some people in the audience don't know what that means. Anybody want to take a hack at it?
Yeah, so yeah, I don't have a really formal definition of it. It's basically when somebody takes the point and then just runs away with it, but never actually comes back to the point.
Okay. So they just keep adding adding layers or detail to it, never come to a conclusive thing, something like that.
Right. So, you know, I ask you a question and you don't answer the question, but you start talking about, you know, this tangent about, you know, why the color purple is the reason of, you know, Jesus or something of that nature. Oh no, we have a red light.
Yeah. I'm not going to do that to anybody who's a caller in. No. I'm just going to do that to the panelists because you're fine with taking a joke.
Matthew Baker just said, I want to do SE, but I have no claims. Well, we actually can give a list of like topics, right?
Yeah. Sure. And any of us, I'm pretty sure, are willing to be interviewed on what claim you choose us to ask. You could ask us anything, and we'd probably be happy to play the interviewee part, let you do the SE. Happy to flip the roles. We love all the roles. It's good stuff. I love watching tangent people get stopped. Okay.
Well, this might be a good question. At what point, if you do feel like you're encountering someone who is tending towards Gish galloping, at what point do you feel it's polite enough to interrupt and try and steer them back to the point? And how do you do that?
You know, that's a really interesting question. You know, knowing when is probably the trickiest part, and it's really when they just get too far away. It's probably the best way I can say it. As far as bringing them back, I used to like to use the "I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm not quite following," right? And then, you know, kind of restate the question. Like I'm not sure that you were quite answering the question, or maybe I wasn't understanding. So, you know, restate the question and then, you know, go from there and see where they go from it.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
When we're doing practices in your events, there's a 20 or 25 minute timer for each of the conversations. So that gives me great. If they're going on for more than about 2 minutes, I interrupt and say, hold on, I have to get to my next step before this much time. So let me take that answer as, and let me give it back to you, and move on to the next one. But you know, I'm pushy that way.
Yeah.
Hello, Matt.
That's a good point.
Oh.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello there. What do you bring?
I bring myself in all its glory.
Yes. Do you have a claim?
I think there's an echo. Do you guys hear that?
Are you watching the YouTube channel?
Oh, let me shut off Facebook. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wasn't hearing an echo, so thank you for sealing that through your headphones.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that. I think we've resolved it. Well, I've resolved the issue.
Cool.
I don't really have, like I said on the Facebook thread, I don't have a claim, but I feel like I've watched enough of these or observed enough of these to kind of get the sense that y'all just want people to talk to. So
sure,
I'm here for you.
Thank you.
I've now joined the conversation. I can be a subject if you like.
Sure.
Although I have no strong claims.
That's a claim.
How dare you?
I could type that.
It's very dialectic of you. But,
hold on. So I think the claim that you just said was, I hold no strong claims. Is that right?
Yeah. Is that a strong claim?
No, it doesn't have to be a strong claim. It can be a weak claim. We don't.
Oh, look at this. Who's Sushi?
Oh, I'm Sushi.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Why is your name Sushi?
It's close to my actual name, and somebody called me Sushi once as almost like an insult, and I'm like, you know what? I actually kind of like that, so now I'm Sushi.
Yeah,
You flipped it on them.
It's a good
Nice.
tag.
Yeah.
Let's see. These are a good interest. There's a good list of topics here: traditions, funerals, porn. What is porn 20? Oh, sorry, 19 is porn.
Yeah, yeah.
19 is porn. Yeah, it's just a list of a number
Funny,
of
that one
lists
stuck out to you.
all
Yeah.
mangled in the copying of the list.
Yeah, so generally everybody has a stance on a lot of these positions or one of these positions. So you could just like pick one particular topic and we can try to like fish out a claim from there. Yeah.
I don't know. I see all of these topics are extremely complex. So again, this goes back to supernatural. Let's go with number one, supernatural. I'll make a claim about supernatural. I don't know how strong this claim is, but and I suppose much depends on what one means by supernatural.
Yeah, sure.
If one means something, if one means by supernatural an indication of something that exceeds the natural, as in a sort of as if there's something outside of even this claim could be problematized outside of space and time, or something outside of the natural world, even if we can't sort of fully explicate what that is. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, so you're saying that supernatural and ways that, you know, people have been presented to you don't make any sense? Is that what you're saying? Is it the claim?
I'm just saying the very term itself it just doesn't. I don't think it actually refers to anything empirical. I think that I'm perfectly fine with the use of the term in as much as it comports with people's experience of something of a sort of an excess of something that is beyond the normal range of human experience. I think these things do happen and are real experiences, and in that sense they are real, and in that sense I'm perfectly fine with saying they're supernatural, but in that's sort of limited to in my estimation to a sort of experiential or phenomenological register. But in terms of a metaphysical register, there's no outside of nature like this. And I have no real basis for making that claim other than I think it's an epistemological issue. I think you can't, how would one know?
Yeah. So you would make the claim that supernatural does not exist?
I think the supernatural sort of demarcates a limit to what we can say about what exists and what does not exist.
Okay. So sorry, could you say that one more time?
Sure. The supernatural demarcates. Damn, it sounded good the first time I said it. What we can say. I can't remember what I said. It was really good the first time. I need help.
Okay, no problem. So we're kind of on the claim that supernatural doesn't exist, but you seem to be struggling at making it a positive assertion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
no, because I think it yes, that's true. Because I think that the invocation of the word supernatural is at once like it's a problem for Western metaphysics in the sense that we want to say that things exist or don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a sort of supernaturalism is a sort of like a term that denotes a limit, but there's no way of knowing whether that limit is real or imagined. And I'm perfectly fine with that. There's a sort of agnostic quality to the term. I guess I'm sort of inclined to believe that in as much as supernaturalism indicates a sort of realm of existence beyond time, space, experience, that doesn't exist, or at least we can't. It demarcates the realm of what is agnostic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So how sure are you that there is no such thing as supernatural?
50%.
50%. Interesting. Okay. Is that on a scale of like 0 being like definitely not true or definitely doesn't exist, and 100% being, excuse me, 0 being definitely does exist, and 100 being definitely doesn't exist? Or is it like, how are you using the 50% scale? Like,
well,
I think
it sort of goes back to the question of what do you mean by supernaturalism?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
You know?
Yeah.
You know? And I think it's a slippery term.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're asking me to kind of, give a percentage of quantify my confidence in that would necessitate, in the first case, so there's two things. In the first case, it would necessitate getting a better handle on what we mean by supernaturalism.
Mm-hmm.
In the second case, I would say if we by supernaturalism we mean that there are things that exist beyond time, space, experience, and so on, then again, you're still only at 50%.
Mm-hmm. So when you're using the word supernatural, you're using it as something beyond the natural, or beyond, or something unexplained, in colloquial terms that most people use the word, right? And you're about 50% sure that there is no supernatural, that these things have naturalistic explanations, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I like what you had to say there, but what do you mean by these things?
Yeah, that's various things, right? And I guess that question would really be directed towards you. I'm saying it in, people say about ghosts, or various other things. Karma might be considered supernatural. Gods are supernatural. Whatever you want to put in there.
I've experienced ghosts.
You've experienced ghosts. Okay, so
Sure.
you believe that ghosts are? Do you believe that ghosts are supernatural?
It's hard to answer.
Okay.
Because I don't think that in the sense that I've experienced ghosts, it's not a question of existence.
Okay.
It's a question of, at least for me, a phenomenon.
Okay. So what is a ghost?
I don't know. I'll tell you. I'll tell you what I'm thinking of, though. It's the experience of, in my experience, it's the experience of presence, but it's the presence of an absence.
Presence of an absence.
Does that make sense?
I'm not sure that quite does. They seem to be contradictory terms.
They
Maybe
do.
you can explain. Yeah.
They are contradictory, and I think this is one of the problems with supernaturalism. Like it sort of disrupts our sort of categories of how we typically think of things. And ghosts, God, these kinds of things, they function in a similar way, I think. So I'm thinking of like someone who like I love deeply, but who has passed, but whose presence I experience on a daily basis, even on a minute to minute basis. Like I experience the presence of this person with me. It doesn't mean I see the person. It doesn't mean that person is there in some sort of like strict ontological or strident ontological sense, but the experience of that is very real.
So what I hear you saying there, and correct me if I'm wrong. So when you're saying that you experience a ghost, it's like a dead relative or something of that nature, and you have a feeling that they are around you. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what part of that dictates it being a ghost?
What other term would you have for it?
Well, I'm trying to understand, like, how do you know that is a ghost?
Because it's more than I think it's the only really term that fits the experience, because I think it's one thing to talk about memory. I have lots of memories, but I would say that the vast majority of them aren't sort of spectral. They don't haunt my sort of waking experience in the same way. And so I think it is a term that fits it's the closest thing we have, right?
So if you are just saying that the memories and this experience of past relatives are that, why call it ghosts? Why not just call them memories of past relatives?
Well, I think I just explained that.
I'm sorry.
Would you like me to explain it again?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I may have missed it.
Sure. So I have lots of memories of things. I remember what I had for breakfast this morning.
Sure.
I think, vaguely, but that's not kind of following me around, sort of imposing itself on me as a sort of lived experience that is almost like a sort of external entity, almost like something that is like not inside my head, but a presence that inhabits the totality of my experience. And I think that there's limited cases where that kind of language of ghosts is more adequate and more what's the word? Yeah, it's more adequate for the experience. It's more it fits better.
Okay. So how certain are you that this is in fact the case, that it is in fact a ghost to this experience?
Well, again, you're I feel like there's a sort of, there's something in the background of your question that I take issue with, and that is, again, this sort of basic Western metaphysical question of, we can put it different ways: presence or absence, or existence or non-existence.
Okay.
Right. This is a very sort of binary way of thinking about things, and I think that it once you sort of And by the way, I used to be an apologist for this type of thinking as well, so I kind of fully understand it, but I don't think it sort of, it doesn't fit the full range of human experience, and I think this sense of being haunted or being possessed are examples of human the kinds of experiences that push against that kind of thinking.
So when you're, I think if I'm understanding you correctly, when you're using this word, you're using it not in the supernatural sense of the word that most people use the ghost, as in like they saw a ghost from like a spirit or like the white blob, or a person walking, that like an apparition. Or is this something you're just associating with the feelings of the relative?
I can only speak to my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
As to what other people experience, I don't know. I tend to take people at their word.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand, your position exactly. So that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're trying to pin me down on it, good luck.
I'm not trying to pin you down. I'm just trying to understand.
I know.
I'm just trying to understand.
I'm not sure. To be frank, I'm not sure that I completely understand.
Okay.
And I think that that's okay.
Yeah, it sounds like you're very agnostic about it, right?
I'm agnostic about a lot of things. I want to take things seriously. I want to take human experience seriously, but I want also to kind of approach it with I have a skeptic's heart.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have learned that like skepticism is a sort of is ultimately a spiritual dead end.
Yeah, could see that. So what are some of the reasons that you believe that these feelings of a past loved one is in fact like a ghost?
Sorry, could you rephrase the question?
Yeah. So what about or what reasons do you have to come to the conclusion that like these past relatives, this experience is a ghost?
So there's a lot going on in the word "is."
Okay.
I mean, this is the
Would it be better?
Go ahead.
Would it be better if it like you believe to be a ghost rather than is a ghost?
So what's the revised question?
Yeah. So what are some of the reasons that you have that lead you to believe that it is a ghost?
Okay, so we're back at "is."
Yeah, believe to be a ghost. Yeah, what are some of the reasons that you have that leads you to believe that it could be a ghost?
Well, I've given several. So,
okay.
I mean, do you, if you don't like the ones I gave you, I mean, I don't really have any other additional ones.
I'm sorry. So, what are some of the reasons?
I mean, this is one of the things I struggle with SE is like as soon as you challenge
Mm-hmm.
the underlying metaphysical assumptions, it's like things just don't compute, because I've explained this several times now, and I just like each time it's just like you're not getting it.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit, and like I'm not like upset, but it is a little bit frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have answered this question several times now, and I just feel like there's an inability or an unwillingness to shift the underlying metaphysical framework for with which the question is being framed.
So, yeah, I understand that. I don't have a metaphysical framework, so I would need to have
everyone has a metaphysical framework.
Yeah. Your metaphysical framework may be that you don't have one, or that you don't consider the one you have something metaphysical.
That is a metaphysical framework, by the way.
Yeah, sure.
That's called nihilism.
Absolutely, I have a worldview. Sure, fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
I mean, by my original claim was about something about something supernatural.
Supernatural, yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Go
you
ahead,
for sharing.
Juggling Lessons. Do you have a question?
No, just ran out of time. So I'm interrupting you.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you, Matt, for that conversation. And I'm sorry if I feel as though I haven't heard you.
No, it's okay. You did a good job. I think you did a great job within the framework that's been given to you.
Mhm.
But again, this is one of the I think the difficulties that I have with street epistemology is that it's not just a method, right? There is an underlying and a sort of a priori metaphysical disposition. In my estimation,
I think I hear your claim is the people in street epistemology tend to be on one side of some metaphysical claims.
Yeah. What's that sound? What is that? Do you hear that?
Somebody is getting
It's
a
like
call.
Zelda.
Yes.
And I remember like several years ago, I was there was this new platform. I forget what it's called now, but I stumbled into it, and there was a bunch of people. It's like maybe like 5 years ago, and there was a bunch of street epistemologists having a discussion, and I was just kind of listening in because I didn't really know anything about it, and they were. I come from a sort of evangelical background. And I was very sort of struck with the sort of resonance of the discussion. The sort of tonality was very sort of here's how like it struck a chord. Like here's how we're going to sort of convert people to a sort of whatever. They weren't specific about it, but I took it to be a sort of secular materialism, and it was just sort of like. It was like street preaching. It was like teaching people how to do street preaching, but it was like in a negative context. It's just like instead of telling what people but to believe, it was just like, no, we're going to expose people to the fact that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And obviously we do, you know what I mean? And it was really like sort of interesting and revealing. And I forget who's the founder of SC.
That's a good question. You might be speaking of Peter Boghossian, or you might be speaking of Anthony Magnabosco, or
no, I know Anthony, but there was another person. He was on that call, and he was like leading the call, and it was very sort of like
Reed.
I don't know, but it was like a proselytizing group, and I think that's how so I'm also a bit of a Nietzschean, and I sort of like that's part of my skepticism. So when I
generalize what Nietzschean means, could you give me a paragraph?
Well, sure. So it means a lot of things, but I think there's a sort of Nietzsche was one of the masters of suspicion, right? And he sort of inaugurated the entire sort of psychoanalytic movement. Freud wouldn't have been able to do any of his work without him. And so when I hear street epistemology, I'm like, oh yeah, we just want to hear why people think what they think. I'm like, no, you don't. You want to convert people to whatever. You're just like doing the same thing Christians do. Sure. You want to convert people. You guys are proselytizing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're proselytizing, but you're doing it in a sort of you're doing it in bad faith. Right. I have more respect for the guy who goes out there and stands on a milk box and says the end is nigh. And listen, people do need to kind of be disabused.
Is he honest?
He is. He believes what he believes. Just the same way, anyone else believes what they believe, and they want to kind of convert anyone else. But like, no, that's it. That's all I got to say.
So just to on to that, as far as with the proselytizing, for me, it's about the beliefs that people have comports with the reasons or the level of confidence that they have excuse me, let me reword that. That the things that people believe with a degree of confidence, that confidence is matched by the reasons that they have. So, like, for instance, your agnosticism towards your belief in, ghosts or supernatural, like, okay, cool, you're on the fence one way or the other. Like, that seems like a pretty rational position to me, and like, I have no interest in converting you out of that position.
Right, because I'm not making any strong claims. Let me make a strong claim. I believe in God. God exists. Go.
Do you want to do we want to do that SE claim? I mean, is it a position you actually hold?
No, but that's my point. Like, it's like, as long as nobody's making any sort of like strong metaphysical claims that you take issue with, then it's no big deal. You're like, oh, that's fine, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's all good. You know, it's just like, as long as no one makes any claims that they can't sort of like provide, sort of empirical evidence, and by empirical I mean, sort of the empiricism of a sort of a more materialist stripe, not of a sort of of a radical empiricism that takes experience. It doesn't wave away experience. Like, if I said, for example, yesterday I was struck blind on my way to Damascus, and Jesus spoke to me and said, "Why are you persecuting me?" I mean, then you would ask me, well, why do you believe that? I'm like, well, because it fucking happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's just like it becomes like a meaningless discussion. People believe the things because they've experienced them, or like they just because they fucking do. You know what I mean? Like, the game you guys are playing is ridiculous.
So that doesn't, right? So if that happened to you, right, and you had that personal experience, it doesn't necessitate its falsehood, right? Like, you may believe it with 100% confidence because it happened to you, but like, if I told you the same story, would you believe me?
Yes, I would, because I
Okay.
take people's experience seriously.
Hmm.
And I think people are genuinely speak and act and believe things in good faith. There are exceptions, of course, but who am I to decide that? You know what I mean? And this is what I think. I just feel like there's a lot of people out there who don't take people's religious experiences seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So,
have you ever experienced somebody lying to you before about an experience?
I have not.
Never?
Never.
Okay.
What about non-supernatural experiences? Like, any experience, like lying about it, like somebody tells you.
Are you asking if people lie?
Yeah. Like,
Sure.
Have you experienced somebody?
Yes, people lie.
So I was just thinking that was like, how would you tell the difference between if they're lying about something supernatural versus something natural?
I suppose I guess a lot would depend on the stakes of the claim, right? Also my interest in the claim, what the impact of the claim was, what the context of the claim is. I think all of these things come into play, but I always will err towards taking people at their word.
Okay.
I mean, do you think that's a good idea, or is that a terrible idea?
Well, I mean, if you take somebody at your word, you could be mistaken, right?
Yeah.
So like this is why, like, in a court, like, we don't take that kind of evidence as very strong evidence. We need other evidence in order to convict somebody.
Why are we talking about courts?
Well, because like, if we took everything at face value, right, like, there would be a lot of wrongly convicted criminals, right?
There are a lot of wrongly convicted criminals. So what's your point?
The point is that we have to measure the amount of weight that evidence has.
Wait, hold on. Sushi says this guy is just a debate bro. Oh, so we're speaking in good faith. All right. Well, you know what? Fuck you.
Oh, I forgot he can see that chat.
Whoops.
Well, if you want to know what Gish Gallop is,
Yeah.
that's Gish Gallop.
All right. Does anyone have controls for letting people in? And
No.
Just Dali.
Yes.
Sorry, Dali.
I'm still here. I've been suffering power outages, and
Oh, my.
our bandwidth keeps crashing. So I figured I would stay quiet and push buttons so that was happening.
Yeah.
As long as I'm still consistent, I don't mind showing and hanging. All right. Yeah, let's see. Where are we? I think we are looking for a caller. Like that.
Cool. More callers.
Yeah. Callers.
Sushi, is there anything you would have done differently about that conversation?
But you know, it was good question. It was really interesting. Rapport, rapport is always number one. If you're in the street, but on a show like this, you don't really have time to build good rapport, and it's a little bit different on video. And it was very evident about 10 minutes in that rapport needed to be reestablished. And which is really tricky when you're on an online show and it's like you don't have something to connect with the individual at.
Yeah.
We have an advantage that not most shows have. 3 other panelists. Tag team, man. If you're finding a frustration, let somebody else come back in. And for them there'll be a natural resetting a bit of rapport. Anyway, it's a rare situation. When were you doing street epistemology that you got a backup? Oh, yeah. Most of the time when I go out in the world, I get that because I don't do it alone. I'm very lucky that way.
Yeah, and it's also when somebody's coming in with a preconception of what you're about to do, you can't really build rapport. They've established a rapport. You just don't know what that rapport is.
Yeah.
It's the hidden rapport.
You seem to have a very negative view of what SE is about, and that it had a particular goal in mind for deconverting people. And when someone starts with that as a prior, I don't really know how you get around that other than, I guess, reestablishing rapport and trying to build up from a base of trust. But for what it's worth, I also didn't really compute or comprehend what he was saying for probably half of that, at the very least. I didn't really know what the claim was in the end either. So,
there was many claims. And that's what makes it really tough. And didn't want to lay down any firm wording towards one way or the other to make the positive claim, so that way he didn't have to justify his reasons. Which is understandable.
Something like that before I gave up trying to type the claims. I don't know. I can't get it out.
I think you handled it pretty well, Sushi, and good job on keeping a calm demeanor. And
thank you.
I liked when you slid into the court and evidence, because that was a really good example, and I think that's why he's like, well, but there are people who are innocent and convicted, and you're like, well, yeah, that's the point. They didn't go with, they went with the circumstance, they went with the direct evidence over the circumstantial evidence, or they hid the circumstantial evidence. So the far more important things. It's funny how. Oh, go ahead.
You go, Rosemary.
I was just going to say, it's funny how people tend to think that eyewitnesses are the best witnesses, but they're not. They're the worst witnesses. The testimonial evidence is always the weakest because it's subject to all our perceptions being weak. So not being able to see, in the dark, also our recall, and every time we tell the story, it changes. There's a lot that goes into that. But if you have DNA evidence and videotapes, you're much better off.
He did say something about a frame of reference and how street epistemology wasn't a good frame to understand the claims he was making. And I would have been curious to explore what other frames could we adopt possibly to bridge that misunderstanding or that ground, if any. Because to me, it really did seem like you were trying to understand where he was coming from. But
legitimately, yeah. I was really taken back on the supernatural doesn't exist to I believe in ghosts, because like I directly tie, ghosts to supernatural or put that in the same family. So yeah, that was a bit confusing for me. So I was really trying to understand how he was utilizing the words, and I think we spent a lot of time on just defining terms, where we didn't even get into the epistemology of the claim.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I think you handled it pretty well, and I'm glad I wasn't in your shoes. We got two Dalis.
Two Dalis,
for a second. And Dali's back, and not for now.
Daliception.
Yeah, having issues with that connection. Did you guys practice SE in the streets?
Not in the streets formally, but I tend to kind of interweave it into. Yeah, it's funny. He was talking about SE and what it means to him and how people practice it. But for me, I really do view it as a tool to better understand someone and have a higher level of empathy. And I found that since I've adopted this practice, I tend to try to put myself in the shoes of the people I'm talking to, namely my friends, when they say things to me. So I kind of just use it informally to answer your question, Rosemary.
Yeah, not really in the streets. I certainly use it in my head to go through conversations, but since I discovered this very close to when the pandemic started, there really isn't a chance to have that human interaction very much. So,
yeah. Well, we got a bit of time. I thought I'd just mention, at least Anthony wanted us to mention this. We have a SE Club Organizers event on September 4th at 6 p.m. US Central Time. We could probably put out a link in the chat at some point. But it's basically for people who are running an SE Club or plan to start running one. They're going to have a gathering to kind of talk through that and help people out. So if anyone's interested in that, check that out.
Can I post in the chat, or I have to go to YouTube to do that?
I have the link.
Probably, I can do it. Give me a second.
I'll put it in the private chat.
I don't have permissions to share links, so if you guys do, just depends on if you have.
I'll post it in the YouTube chat.
There you go. SE is a cult. I wonder that myself sometimes, to be honest.
Well, at a certain point, every human society has those tendencies. Like that's how we form social cohesion, is around a shared set of symbols and beliefs. So it's just how far does that go?
Oh, thank you, Reed. He posted the Reddit thread.
Stole my glory. That's all right.
Cults get results. Yeah, that's really interesting, because like it's so easy to fill somebody's head with hopes and dreams through various cult practices, but to get somebody out of cult is painstaking process and can leave somebody traumatized. And it spreads, right? It spreads for sure.
Those ideas. Oh, good.
I was going to ask, when you say you wonder about it sometimes, Sushi, what parts of SE do you feel might be like cult-like?
It's just like when I first came about it, I don't know, because it's such a different way of thinking. It doesn't fit within the normal realm of, you know, what I've experienced around me. So, you know, when I'm getting into something, I'm very skeptical of anything. So I was questioning, like, what is this? Who are these people? Is this guy a cult leader? But, you know, once I got to more involved with it, I realized, like, those are just silly questions, because, like, there's not any strong, like, organizational body that says, like, this is what we believe and this is why. This is the practice. It's a form of, you know, Socratic questioning, and, you know, we're free to do it like we want to perform it, you know.
Yeah. Just make sure you drink the Kool-Aid, right?
Yes, all of that good Kool-Aid.
Yeah. I like that aspect about SE, and I've noticed this with several other practitioners. Everyone has their kind of own style of doing it, and it's kind of fun to almost like chop and choose, you know, who your favorite SE is and adopt their tactics and questions and style of questioning. But yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I think it's perfectly rational to be skeptical of a movement of the whole praise be to say yes. Oh, God. I hope he doesn't watch this stream back, because it's going to be embarrassing.
Well, you know, it's only the internet, you know, it'll only be around forever, so don't worry too much about it.
So if anyone wants to call in with a claim and have one of us SE that claim, feel free to. And also make sure you hit the like button. If you just want to chat, yeah.
Chat. We actually have a list of possible topics if you're interested in, or you can't having trouble coming up with a claim. We have things like you know, supernatural, which we just talked about. We have religion, astrology, psychics, pseudoscience. We have philosophy, freedom of speech, political regimes, education system, medicine, ecology, AI and rights, AI and jobs, the right to have children, multiculturalism, positive discrimination, funerals, privacy and security, prostitution, drugs, politics, genetic engineering, cloning, gun control, feminism, gender, and pride. So I'm sure that everybody in here has the a position on any of these claims, and we can SE on. So, you know, feel free to step up and, you know, have a claim explored.
Yeah. Have either of you been keeping track of what's been happening in the AI space with regards to GPT-3 and Dali and stuff like that?
To some extent, I do have a couple of YouTube channels that I watch on, but, you know, we're nowhere near being sentient yet.
Yeah.
I think that's like the major concern, right?
Well, for me, sorry, you go, Rosemary.
I was just to say, I've seen a lot about Dali and the other like AI art stuff that's in the YouTube that I follow, but not the other thing, so I'm not familiar.
I mean, it's really fascinating, and we can create lifelike stuff with computers, but usually the examples that we're given are, you know, very refined definitions that are given to the AI, and then they render it multiple times, you know, and feed it back into itself in order to get the really good outcomes. Now, something with like GPT-3, where it's like just text-based generation, you can have conversations with it, but it's not quite human-like yet. Still very impressive. I think what's more interesting is the AIs that are AI robots that can like interact with the world, where it's like, you know, you're making a sandwich, you know, and it needs to know to, you know, get you the bread and the peanut butter without, you know, you telling it to. And it can do very simple tasks like that, but it does it pretty badly. I mean, pretty good for, you know, 2022, but you know, we're still a long way from having to worry about sentient stuff taking over us. Yeah.
I've been really impressed with the AI art generators that have been coming out. almost to the point where I'm a little worried about my job as a so I do graphic design as my job, but I'm a little worried about being unemployed very soon because of just how quickly they seem to be able to evolve the AI art generation process.
I don't know. Do you follow James Gurney at all? That artist? Yeah, no. He does watercolor. He's the guy that created Donatopia, but he reviewed it, and it's like a lot of the people who I've seen talk about it, they're like, yeah, like the very, like if you just need a stock photo of a woman eating salad, like that stuff will go away. But a lot of the fine artists see potential for getting kind of inspiration from playing with the words, and also the new wave of using AI to create the image. So you're interacting and creating those more complex ideas and moving through it. So kind of how Photoshop was a tool that changed how everything was done, and people felt like they were going to lose out, that eventually people will find a way to make AI work for them rather than against them.
Yeah, I've had to got into the beta for Dali 2 with the generation of generating art, and I've got some really impressive results that were like, okay, this is definitely a new thing that I would definitely want to utilize as a piece of art. But then there's the other stuff that are just pixelated messes of garbage, you know. So it's very random as what it'll output.
Yeah.
Can we SE each other? Oh, sure. I have a list of claims.
Sure, I can step up to the SE plate and SE you on some claims of yours, Sushi.
Yeah, give me a second. I have a whole list. This is from doing the practice over on the SE Discord. Yeah, it's something that like comes in handy when you're doing SE all the time. It's like rather than having to think of claims, you know, off the top of your head. So here, let me share this. I'll put it in the private chat here. But yeah, if you want to pick one of those claims, I'd be happy to be SE'd on any of those. Some of them I hold to stronger than others. Just ignore the confidence levels for the most part.
You had a couple of high confidence claims in here as well. That's interesting.
Yeah, so they should be at 99% and not at 100. I don't believe that we can know truth.
I mean, is there any claim in here that resonates with you that you'd like to discuss?
Let's see. So we'll look at one of the higher claim ones. There is climate change is real. We could do climate change is real.
I was looking at that one. Yeah, let's do that one. Let's do the climate change is real one.
Sure.
Okay. I assume I'm doing this, Rosemary. So unless you want to. Okay, she's gone.
Does she have the button?
No, I think Dali took rid of her. Okay. So the claim is that climate change is real.
Yeah.
How long have you had this belief for?
You know, I guess it started out when I was maybe in elementary school with like the whole like El Nino thing. You know, it went from like El Nino to global warming to now we call it climate change.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
What
was so you had it for safe to say a few years, and the reason why you have, or part of the reason why I have this claim is because it was happening at a time where I guess you're observing changes in weather events, drastic changes in weather events. Can you just define what you mean by El Nino and some of those other words you used?
So, I mean, when El Nino, I was told about it when I was younger, was like something to do with like warm air coming up north through like the Gulf Stream or something. But that was like my primitive understanding of it then. But which evolved into global warming, which is that like the ice caps are melting, to climate change, which is like affecting it is affecting the weather, is leading to droughts and wildfires. It's leading to things like over in what is the Russian tundra? No, what's the cold? Yeah, is it the tundra that with the ice, the permafrost? The permafrost is melting. There we go. Permafrost is melting, and it's leading to these like massive like methane pockets that are being exposed, and some of them even exploding. Which is causing fires, which is like exacerbating the problem. So,
right. So there's as a part of these weather events associated with El Nino, there's I guess like a catalyst or a chain reaction of things that are happening as a consequence of that, and that is climate change.
Well, so climate change is a result of the El Nino is just what we initially had called it when climate scientists were first like formulating and understanding what was causing it. But the cause of it is the increase in greenhouse gases, CO2 being like one of the larger ones, which is comes from burning fossil fuels primarily.
Yeah. Okay. And I believe your confidence in this claim was 99%.
99%.
Right?
Yeah, 99%. Yeah. It's very high. I think I've experienced it. Like the more severe storms and stuff. When I was younger, I remember having a tornado pass through the backyard, and was it last year? We had like 12 tornadoes blow through our area, which is just like absurd. In like a 10-year period getting one, as opposed to in one season getting 12. Yeah.
Right. So as a result of this background knowledge that you learned, you also have experienced it firsthand in terms of the severity and the frequency, I guess, of tornadoes coming through your town. And for you, that, I guess, bolsters your confidence to that 99%?
Yeah, it adds to it. I wouldn't say that's like one of the primary reasons.
What is the primary reason?
I guess it would have to be like all the stuff that I have read about it and YouTube videos I've watched on it. And I think one of the damning things is that the original climate scientists were actually paid by ExxonMobil, that they wanted to determine how, what burning fossil fuels is doing to the atmosphere. And, that's it's when they discovered that they kind of got shut down and defunded, because they realized that how harmful that would be for their business. Yeah. So that's probably one of the biggest things that holds me to the position.
Right. So it's the I guess the vast wealth of, I guess, scientific literature and research that you've read, along with what would you call that? Like a scandal or a?
I wouldn't call it a scandal. I mean, I think it's just business people doing business things.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you were to find out you were somehow mistaken, what would that drop your confidence level to? About this primary reason.
Yeah. I think I would take my confidence down to maybe 20%, 30%. Because there's a lot of other stuff. It's not like just this one thing. I think that's just that one thing makes it more real to me, because it was like, hey, like we were on team fossil fuel and we're saying the fossil fuels are bad. It's not like it was like some person in believing in green technology that's like, oh yeah, you know, buy an electric car kind of thing. It was the people that were producing the you know, gasoline engines that were, you know, put this stuff out. But there, that being said, like all of the other stuff there, like I said, with climate change, there is like extreme weather events, and that's like another maybe like 10%. And then there's the other papers and studies that I've read about it, which is another 10% or something like that. I think that this main reason, I think, just gives those extra weight.
Right. Okay. Oh.
Hi. We're back. I didn't realize that was popping up on my feed. I see myself.
Oh, I'm getting a weird audio
I'm getting
buzz.
a crackle.
Sounds like a loose audio connection.
All right, let me jump out and back in.
Okay. So, sorry, you were saying that the other 20% is comprised of, if we were to take that reason away, that the people who are responsible, ExxonMobil, said themselves, this is really bad, we need to do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
The other 20% would just be the research and, what was the other thing you said? Research and the experience you had of severe climate. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, really, I guess the other research would like compound to being the remaining 80%. You know, it's not any one piece that, you know, would, you know, break the puzzle apart. It's all of the individual pieces that adds up to that, you know, that additional 80%. I think what like I said, with these Exxon Valdez or Exxon Mobil, I think it's just more significant to me, like I said, because it's on it was they were on the opposite side essentially.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I have one last question, and then I'll let Rosemary take over from here.
Sure.
How does this belief in this claim influence or guide your life or your behaviors in life?
A significant portion. I'm limited by what I can really do to stop it. I'm not a climate expert. I don't have the ability to, you know, build my own, you know, self-reliant, you know, energy, you know, renewing thing. I'm reliant on outside technology. So it does change my habits, where it's like I try to minimize the amount I drive. You know, I turn my computer off more often, that kind of thing. But, you know, ultimately it doesn't have like too major of an impact, outside of hoping that future generations continue to survive.
Okay, it's a great response. Do you have any feedback for me?
Do I have any feedback for you? No, I think you got down to it. Yeah, I think you explored my reasons, and I think Jesus Christ asked a good question.
Yeah,
should scientists be wrong? And the answer to that question is yes, definitely. Could all scientists be wrong? Very unlikely.
Yeah, that might be another claim in and of itself to explore.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rosemary, I didn't mean to take up all that time. Did you have something you wanted?
Oh no, you're good. Can you guys hear me? Okay, am I not?
Yeah, you're good.
No, you're good now.
All
yeah,
right, good.
It's delightful.
All right. Do we know if we have anybody waiting, or we haven't heard anything? We don't have anybody. Okay. So.
I think I did see other claims in the chat.
Rosemary mentioned Reed had one.
Well, yeah, Reed threw one up, I think, because I had sent him, it was an idea of something he could use in the spectrum SE. I was trying to think about,
so spectrum SE is the one that Peter Boghossian does with the lines.
The strong
one. Yeah. That's what we've been calling it unofficially. Spectrum SE.
Yeah, it's just basically I don't know. I have not done a 50-state survey, and I don't know what Australia does for this, but something that surprised me, even though it shouldn't have surprised me, was that at least in Pennsylvania, we have in the jury instructions for compensatory damages for like medical care, one of the options, because you could have like a medical expert come in and do a life expectancy testimony, but one of the options is that you take the CDC charts and it's based on race and gender, what you set the life expectancy on. So it's interesting when you put them together, because race and gender they change the variables, but and so it's not something like where I have a super strong position. I lean one way, but as far as my actual everyday employment, my opinion doesn't matter. So
well played.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I guess I don't know if you want to do that sort of as like SE me, or if we wanted to.
Well, what's the claim exactly?
So my claim is that I lean that jury instructions for the life expectancy, so the number of years that you use to calculate, let's say, future medical expenses after you had an accident or an injury that you know you're going to need lifetime care for, is the way I lean is to base it on biological sex, but not on race.
So maybe the claim is race should not be a consideration when deciding. How did you put it again? Insurance. Well, was it insurance? No, it wasn't insurance.
Life expectancy. So it's like, well, technically insurance is paying, but but yeah, basically when we're calculating what the damages are that are going to be given to the plaintiff, if you're going to award damages, you use their life expectancy. So let's say women live, I don't know the exact numbers, so we're going to say on average 3 years longer than men. And that Black people in the United States live 5 years less than white people. So
I think Dali probably captured the claim pretty well. Jury instructions about life expectancy should contain sex information and not race. Is that more or less right? Okay.
That's the way I lean, but that is not an opinion that makes any difference in my day job.
Okay. Should we just do a kind of tag team, or
tag team?
Do you want to
take
this one?
Yeah. We'll tag team it.
Okay.
So
you lead.
Yeah. So what holds you to this position?
My primary reason is the Civil War amendments in the Constitution, where we specifically state that the laws should not discriminate based on race or national origin. So I would say that this is one of the few laws that actually violates those provisions. And the question is, is it the kind of thing that violates it at the level that it's not constitutional? I think it's fuzzy. But obviously biological sex is not, there's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't discriminate on biological sex. So that is my primary reason, is what does the Constitution say? So
the Constitution says that race should not be taken into account, correct?
Yeah, you're basically, the ideal is that you're not making laws based on race and national origin. There's no discrimination based on race and national origin, even though in practice that has not been the case since those were passed in the 1800s, right after the Civil War. So,
well, that sounds like we're done.
It's
in the Constitution.
It's in the Constitution, but that would be my primary reason. That's what I'm hanging my hat on for why I would treat one differently than the other. But I think that even with strict scrutiny analysis, you could make a really good case for why it passes strict scrutiny. But, and I think a lot of, again, like when I was looking it up before, I have not looked at all 50 states, but I don't think California uses race. They used sex, but not race. And I'm just not sure how many of the states fall on either way. But it is, in fact, the case that the law in Pennsylvania in a case may include race. But it all depends on the lawyers. The lawyers can negotiate that. And like I said, the insurance companies, their goal is always going to be to pay the least amount. So I doubt you're going to get the defendant's attorneys agreeing to, you know,
if it wasn't in the law, do you think you would feel differently about this, or would you still feel the same? Hey, Kat.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I would still lean, it would just lean less in the sense that if I was going to make a legal argument, I wouldn't have a strong legal argument. But if I wanted to make an argument based on what's best for society and what should our goals be and look at history, then that would be, I would still lean that way.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So is this currently a law that race is taken into effect, or is it's just that gray zone where every case, they've got...
It's the law. It's the law of the case. It's a suggested jury. It's not a strict law. Like, it's not something that you have to do it that way. It's just a suggested
interesting
jury instruction. That's, again, like why it's fuzzy. And most people aren't going to be thinking about it, because unless you're actually a plaintiff who's seeking compensation after a car accident, it's not going to affect you. You're not going to think about it. Like, even me, who had been working in the field, didn't really realize that till I was doing stuff where that would come up.
So outside of the Constitution, is there other reasons that lead you to this claim?
I think that for me, it's that it makes it, if we were keep breaking people down into the groups, and you can kind of see the historical disparities show up in the life expectancy based on group, and it's like, is it really necessary? I think with biological sex, we see a difference that might be more attributable to it. I think if you took the Constitution out, it almost makes sense to just say the average life expectancy from the person who is 42 now, no matter what, it should just be this set amount.
Okay.
Where would you place your confidence on the confidence scale?
I lead, I'm 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah, I can go up or down easily.
Yeah, what would be good evidence for you to increase your confidence?
Increase my confidence that it should not be included.
Yeah, it should just be on sex.
I think to increase my confidence that it should not be included, there should be a greater disparity in life expectancy. I don't know if that really works. If that makes sense, in the sense that the ideal would be to not have to have that disparity at all. And it's also just, right. It's more of our values should be to not make that discrimination.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So would you say it's more of a position based on, values of what we should be striving towards in society? Race blind in a way?
Yeah. This would be a race blindness that has a purpose that's meant to actually bring about a certain kind of equity in a very, very small, narrow place.
Yeah, gotcha. And
How would it? Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was gonna say, how would it affect the world if like race was not taken into account?
And I don't think it would. Again, because it's such a narrow situation, I don't know that it makes a huge difference unless you're actually the plaintiff.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that.
Yeah, that sort of answers my question. It's just gray zone. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a big difference to the plaintiff. It doesn't make as big difference to you or me if we're not there.
Mm-hmm.
And what about the other way? What would lower your confidence?
I don't know if there's something, because it's not a super strong lean. I think that if I was being the defendant's attorney, it would all be about like the negotiation. So they're always going, they want to get to pay out the lowest, and the plaintiff's attorney is trying to get the highest. So I think if I was the defendant's attorney, that would lower my confidence.
Right. If there was a good enough case to get more for your client, you would play that card.
Or basically that my client would have to pay out less. That would be my job to do.
Yeah.
My job would be lower my confidence, which I know that's just typical lawyer.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, to SE a claim that you agree with.
Yeah, it's hard to say what. Yeah, but I think it would be a situational thing where
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm out of questions on this one.
Oh, gee. I was going to ask you any more questions.
No.
Here's a question I've stolen from Nathan, abstract activist. Imagine there's a magic envelope, and in this envelope, it's written down exactly why you're mistaken. Gives you precisely the reason. I hand you the envelope. What does it say?
That's a hard question. It's an interesting way to put it. Yeah.
Maybe a meta question. Would you want to know if you were mistaken about this?
I suppose it would be good to know I was mistaken, but I don't know what the reason would be. It's hard for me to. Again, my brain just keeps going. Like if I was a defense attorney, I could imagine the reason, but that's where my brain was going. I just
Are we just secretly low-key preparing you for your next case? This is what this is.
No, I do not do that side of the thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't have any other questions. So, unless you have another question.
I always blame my cats, especially when they're scratching. It's also 11:30 for me, so.
That's actually a good point. Asking how, I think it's Justin. Why do we make the distinction between race, but not sex or other characteristics? Why not just get rid of
all of it?
All of it.
Yeah, you could just. I don't see why you couldn't. But I think it comes down to. So I see some questions about dangerous jobs, weight, medical condition. Yeah, a lot of this comes down to how the insurance companies basically run all the numbers. So I would say if you had like somebody who had a really bad medical condition that would not have a normal lifespan, they might pay to have an expert come in to say like that it's going to be shorter than normal. Or let's say you have an injury to a child, you'd want to figure out like, well, what's their lifetime going to be with this severe injury? How is it going to shorten? So like both sides would bring in their experts, and one would be arguing it down and one would be arguing it up. And so a lot of the reason you're going to have those distinctions being made is because the goal for the defense is to pay the least amount, and the goal for the plaintiff is to get the most. Yeah. So like if your plaintiff is a white female, they live the longest, you're going to want to talk about being white and female. And, you know, if you're on the defense side, you might argue for, let's just take all those characteristics out.
Yeah, right. It sounds to me like maybe it's fairness. It's about fairness, about what you're fairly owed, depending on your circumstance.
Yeah.
And if we just do it according to a human average, maybe some people will get unfair. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, yeah, if you're especially if you're the one getting the money, but again, like they negotiate, like why are they even picking those out and not just saying a flat? It's because of that dynamic of, you know, negotiating the back and forth to get to a number.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a way to ask. Are you familiar with the outsider test of faith question?
Yes.
I'm trying to think of a way to phrase that for this particular claim. Sushi, you have any ideas? I don't.
The outsider test on this one.
What would that look like?
So, if there was somebody who believed that we should actually have race in the thing, because it does have an impact on like the life expectancy of the individual that was significant, would that change your confidence in the claim?
So wait, can you say that one more time?
So you had an individual, right, that were to show you that that there was significant impact to the length or the age of the lifespan of an individual based on race. Would that change your confidence in the claim at all?
I'm not sure if it does. Maybe because I think I've already thought through that in this, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Dali posed, outsider is anthropologist from Mars, never heard of race or sex, doesn't get why it matters. But I think you kind of answered that previously.
Yeah, I think, just when it comes down to the negotiation over the settlement, that's
it's also, sorry, you go.
I was going to say the goal of it's an adversarial system, so yeah.
Yeah, it also sounded like you didn't really, like you'd also be open to exploring it just being a human average, regardless of sex and race.
Yeah,
it sounded like you were open to that.
I mean, that would certainly seem to be the fairest and most like straightforward. It would be easiest too, but yeah, because there's no guarantee like how long you're going to live. That's just the averages.
Yeah. Are there any questions we didn't ask, Rosemary, that you wanted us to, or do you feel like properly explored this belief?
I think you asked good questions. My apologies if my brain is a little bit slower and more tired. So
it's all good. We'll just interpret that as aporia.
Yeah.
That's a good question. How do you determine between confusion and aporia?
Yeah. I was going to ask, what do you guys, where do you feel like you felt? Yeah.
We have Justin. Hello.
Hi, guys.
Make sure, yeah.
You mute the
Make sure
stream, yeah.
I muted the stream. Sorry about that.
You're good.
Yeah, I didn't expect to get put in so fast. Thanks.
It's okay. I saw you were asking.
I have so many questions that I'm brimming with them. And if you're okay with it, Rosemary, I was hoping to explore it a little bit more with the help of everyone else here. There's no need to throw away the other folks.
Yeah, that's cool.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah. I was just about to ask them where they felt about
I'm
it.
still getting feedback, Justin. Do you have your YouTube tab muted?
I
Closed.
thought I did.
Seems good.
I do.
Seems okay now. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, nothing should be coming out of my speakers any longer.
Awesome.
Yeah, so when you guys were asking about the claim, I still don't have a clear understanding of why in this case you believe this is the right way to handle things. And the main reasons I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, were the Constitution basically says we can't do this, which I agree. But I think maybe a more interesting formulation of the hypothetical or of the situation is like, if you could choose to make the law the way that you wanted to achieve justice, not outcome for a specific case, where you're a specific advocate for a specific person, like you were talking about, it sounds like that's what you do for a living.
I'm a different end of it, but yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
But so like, assuming that we want to make just laws and you had the choice to make a just law, why would you choose to remove race as opposed to some of the other things that we had listed here?
In the context of like race and gender, my leaning was basically like constitutionally, but also slightly selfish. I'm female. So it's like, I don't think that's a bad one. We can get one, but no, it's true. But I also am joking. So yeah, like I think if I was just looking at it like dry law, that's the way I lean, is how I like based on what I know. If I'm going with what I think is the fairest and has
I think that's the most interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm going with the fairest, I think it should just be the flat rate. Like
okay, so
everybody average,
right? And that hard. Way, yeah. And it sounded like you were saying there might be a trade-off there between someone who is perhaps ill, or I think one of the things I brought up that was mentioned was like if you have a dangerous job. Well, in effort of kind of more broad fairness, we would sacrifice that individual fairness in the favor of kind of the broader fairness, right?
Yeah, I think, and also you could take into account somebody's job, especially if you're doing something where you have an expert give testimony. Because there are options of how to do it. Like this is the thing. It's like, it's not one just set law. It's like the suggested things, and you negotiate that during the process of the trial before, and you come up with the instructions for that trial based on what happens. So a lot of times really comes down to the adversarial system.
Right.
Or like when I'm thinking about it in that context. But if I try to take myself out of the profession, it's hard to somebody could have a dangerous job, but they could still live to 90. Like, should you really take their dangerous job into account?
Yeah, even if we can narrow down someone's personal circumstances pretty tightly, it is still just an average, right?
It's just an average, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a matter of which average are we choosing in a sense. So, okay, if I could recap what you said, and this is just to make sure that I understand, you would prefer that we use the raw average of, let's say, everybody in the States, let's call it, and exclude specific mention or analysis of things like race and sex.
I think that would be the most fair. It's
right.
It's like anybody can get missed easily. Like anybody can get missed in their actual number equally, if that makes sense.
Right. Of course.
Your chances, yeah.
And if we were to kind of add back in race and sex, do you think one should take special precedence over the other? In terms again of like, achieving justice, however you want to formulate that, since that's what I perceive the courts to be there for.
Well, what is justice? That is a good question.
Yeah.
When do courts ever get you that? But I am joking. I feel like of the two of them, if I was adding one back in, that would, depending on how you define justice, I would say base it on sex, but not race.
And again, because you would benefit, of course.
Well, yeah, I would benefit, but I think the differential when you look at life expectancy between races, everybody else would be better off being pulled up. So, like,
I didn't quite follow.
Oh yeah, so yeah, like I don't know all the numbers, but generally, if you're looking at Black populations versus white populations, like white populations live longer on average.
Mm-hmm. So because that's a greater difference, we should be more hesitant to put it back in as a factor.
Yeah, I would say that it's more fair to include sex over race.
Again, appealing to kind of a broad societal fairness rather than individual fairness.
Right.
Right. Cool. Yeah, now I feel like I have a much better understanding of why you believe it the way that you do.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not a strong thing. I can definitely, be changed on that. Like I said, I agree. It's more fair to take it out altogether.
Yeah. If I had the choice, I would rather throw in all the factors I possibly could. And I think that courts and insurance companies are kind of designed to do that. Though I for sure understand the desire not to have this kind of cross group thing just play against somebody for something they can control. Like I totally get that. Yeah. But we can't read the future. So
can't read the future. Gomeo, you were thinking something.
No, it's not important. Did you say? I mean, it sounds like Justin got all the answers that he wanted and also the questions he needed. I was going to ask, if you were the rule maker, you want to change this policy. Is it fair to say that you would change it to be just a all aboard average?
I would probably lean the most that way, but I could be persuaded to keep sex.
Yeah. What information would you need access to make that decision, or would you want to see?
I think I would want to know, and again, you're not going to get this information, but it would be good to see what. Some of it you're going to get. So you could definitely look at if you collected the data of all the actual jury awards and see how they distribute based on the different instructions are given. So that would be like a data, so you could see everything how it breaks down across the groups. But what you're not going to see is what they settle for without going to a jury. So, because not everything goes to a jury. That's actually pretty small. Again, like it's such a narrow topic, but it's an interesting kind of thought. What's the word? the
Intuition pump.
Intuition pump. Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's a good way to do that discussion. My problem is I suck in the mechanics of it, so.
Understand. Have you shifted on your confidence at all as a result of having this discussion?
I would say, yeah, a little bit. I shifted on my confidence in the way it was originally phrased to a more flat.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I've exhausted all my SE questions, so I don't have anything else to add to this. But we got
I roped you back in there. Sorry about that.
No, that's all good. That's what the show's about. But you've got another 20 minutes. Don't know if anyone else wants to call in with the claim. They're more than welcome to. Justin, do you have a claim that you would like explored?
I don't have a claim, actually. I wish I did. I know that's what everybody kind of wants on the show. But to call back to a discussion you guys were having earlier, I think it was with Matt was his name.
Yeah.
Yep.
He, apparently there might, I guess I'll wait for that to get sorted out. The part of that discussion, eventually there seemed to be kind of, somewhere we moved into the idea of we should rely on experts. Oh, it was with Sushi, actually. I'm sorry. I totally mixed up who we were talking about. And I've been interested in the idea of how can we use SE to explore how confident one should be in an expert, including, I think the easiest way for us to conceptualize kind of the thing I'm trying to tease out is how do you use SE to talk to somebody about what we would consider to be a pseudoscience versus a science, where someone will claim expert opinion as the reason for their belief. And then how would you use SE to kind of distinguish that might be what's happening as opposed to maybe a more well-founded reliance on experts? Maybe you guys have an opinion on that.
I think that's where SE might not work so well. I think you're going to have to get to some form of dialectic in order to handle that. Because as long as the reasoning of your interlocutor is sufficient to convince them and they believe it's good reasoning, then I don't think there's really much further you can go with that.
Right. My thought is more like, it even sounds like a good reason to me here, or I would say, hey, that's a good reason, or if anyone else brought that up for maybe a different substantive claim, and I wouldn't really know how to explore that. And I guess you're saying you don't think we could.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because we all appeal to experts to some extent, right? It's just that when we talk about the fallacy, it's like appealing to an expert, and I think that's the distinction. Is like they do have, like in the pseudoscience, their own experts, right? It's just not within the larger group of experts. And I just don't see any way around it, right? It's that appeal to authority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I could see benefit in exploring, I guess, the method they used to determine why they should trust this authority. And I think SE could be good in exploring that kind of foundational belief, or even going meta, like what is good evidence? How do you determine what is good evidence? But yeah, I tend to agree with you. Those type of claims are a little more difficult to pass. Do you have any thoughts, Justin?
I guess it's also like all of a sudden an SE advice show for me. So yeah, that is. I agree with you that there's difficulty there. I think that might be right. What methods did you come to determine that this person was an expert, maybe, or how familiar? How familiar? Wow, I can't talk all of a sudden. How familiar are you with the with the reasons these experts came to these conclusions, perhaps. That kind of thing maybe comes to mind. Yeah, I guess exploring how they're qualifying these particular people is maybe a good start.
Yeah, I tend to find with those type of conversations, they typically, in my experience, either comes down to like a feeling they get from believing that particular thing, or it's a tribe they belong to, and to, I guess, not take what the authority says as gospel. Tic Tac. Yeah. Actually, Tic Tac. Actually, that's a good point. I think you brought this up earlier in the chat. Maybe another avenue to explore is how you determine truth.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine someone saying, well, my experts, they did the studies, or something very general like that. And then, I guess it would be, let's dive into the methods that they used. And that makes sense. I don't think I would tic-tac them directly, but see how much they know about the correlations or the conclusions that are being drawn from the experts versus the methods. Yeah.
Does that give you clarity or insight into how you might tackle that problem in the future?
Yeah, I think I would go that way. I would basically, what is an expert? I think is maybe the next avenue there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd also be curious to explore what it's like, presumably before they start to believe that expert, they believe something else. And I would be curious to explore what it's like to change their mind on a particular thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I assume that if we're talking about something like a pseudoscience, most people would recognize that that's not the majority position, and then you could kind of reflect from that. Why don't you accept that? And that might be able to bring out reasons and like potential biases, like you're talking about here, like an a priori belief that they're just trying to confirm through whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
good
helpful.
talk.
Did this come up with in a live SE that you were doing with somebody that you ran into this boundary?
Kinda. I've seen it, and I think it kind of happened with your discussion here, Sushi. Was that there are certain things that, to Matt's credit, I think a lot of us would say are things that we think are good reasons to believe something. And when we get to those, we have difficulty exploring it, even though there can be problems with that method, such as just reliance on experts. And I would like a way to go deeper and reinforce or question certainty based on something more in depth, maybe, than just, well, an expert said it. Yeah. Though it has happened to me once, but I don't think the expertise was particularly the thing that tripped me up in that case.
Yeah, gotcha.
Is there a way to avoid relying on experts?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think we would function if we, had to individually verify everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we're probably going to wrap it up.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, I'll just again mention that on September the 4th, there's that SE gathering meeting. If anyone's interested, I'll post the link in chat again. If you're interested in starting a local meetup group, come along and we'll get a bunch of information on how to do that and help with setting it up. But yeah, I guess let's wrap it up here. Thanks, Justin, for coming on, and Sushi and Rosemary.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for answering.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.